I think that mentality was super crucial in deflating the young Celtics team spirits.
Would you fall for me like I fall for you?
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Now. It's your boy Dom, and we're gonna get right into things here today. So, today, we're talking about the Warriors finals. The Warriors finals, I preface it that way because they won the finals. Obviously, they won the finals yesterday, getting Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green their fourth finals, and taking it down the Boston Celtics in 6 as I originally predicted. Not to toot my own horn too much, but I am pretty proud of myself getting that prediction right. It's not something that you get right very often. I mean, the games in the NBA are so unpredictable when it comes into night in, night out, series to series. There's just so many factors every single night, and we saw it even in this series. A team can go on a run late in the fourth quarter and change the game completely around, right? So there's so many things that go into winning a single game. To get that prediction right, it's pretty cool, but in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't mean much. And yeah, so the Warriors won in 6. Obviously, Steph Curry finally captured his finals MVP. The typical, I'm trying to think, the typical thing that people would just pick at him, like when you're trying to pick at Steph Curry's legacy, the asterisk that on his resume has always been the finals MVP, right? I mean, 2-time MVP, unanimous MVP. Obviously, there's always the argue that LeBron deserved a unanimous MVP, and other players maybe did, or something like that. But he is the only unanimous MVP. 4-time champion. Did it without Durant. Did it without Durant. So the Durant carried him thing kind of goes away now, because I mean, I think when we were looking at this series the whole time, at least the first 4 games, the only way they won that series was if Steph Curry won Finals MVP. Now, there was chatter that was brought up about Andrew Wiggins potentially getting it. Obviously, Wiggins would have gotten it similarly to how Andre Iguodala got it, but I think that was mostly because that would help the media out more. If the media saw Steph Curry not get it again, they still have that to use in arguments and conversation to help with their daily shows where they're running 2 hours to 6 hours, going to 7 different programs. I mean, look at Stephen A. I don't think he leaves ESPN on a daily basis without putting out probably 13 hours of content. You know what I mean? Or at least being included in like 13, 14 hours of content, which nobody can watch. Nobody can even watch how much he's putting out. But that's just how much these sports people are talking about sports, obviously, when you're looking at major media outlets. So it would have helped them more than it really made sense. Obviously, Wiggins played his mind out, not only in Game 4, where he just came up super, super clutch for them, had a career-high rebounding game and everything like that to help them not go down 3-1 in the same way that Steph Curry had a explosive game there, which I think was the game that solidified him getting Finals MVP. Just the game that he had there. I think he would have had to have back-to-back performances like his Game 5 performance to even really push the conversation, and even then I still think he would have been leading it. And Wiggins then in Game 5 showed up and was their best player in a win for them. So obviously Wiggins did his thing, but it would have been very similar to an Andre Iguodala situation where kind of like part of the way through the series he started to show up and do stuff. And yes, technically you could look at that and say, oh, well, that was where it turned around. It's the same argument for the Andre Iguodala thing. But I think also the people that vote on this learned from that mistake last time, right? Because I think I said this before. If I didn't, I'm going to say it again. When you look back at that, Iguodala probably didn't deserve it. Now, some of the thought process behind it makes sense. Also, the fact of, Curry will get one at some point, right? That, I think, as we've grown, as we've forced the media to grow, not even just as we've grown as basketball fans, but as we've forced the media to grow a lot, I think, in the last few years, we've kind of seen how, no, they're not going to have another chance. one chance like this. If it happens now, you have to give it to them if they deserve it. You know what I mean? Don't take away somebody's credit or something like that if you think that they'll have another chance. Now, they were right in the gamble of letting Steph Curry take another, 7 years before he finally got it, but he got it. But I mean, like, we can look at the Boston Celtics right now. We can look at the Phoenix Suns last year. They got to the finals. I very much thought the Phoenix Suns had a very good chance again this year. And a lot of people think that the Boston Celtics will have a chance going into the future. But you never know. I mean, the Suns got bounced in this playoffs. The Lakers, we saw them win a finals only a few years ago. They didn't make it. The Heat couldn't make it back because they couldn't make it through the Celtics. I mean, there's so many times when they'll be back and we don't see them back. So I think we've gotten better at kind of crediting when credit is due rather than trying to look forward where we might be able to give credit in order to kind of spread the love in that sense of the way. But yeah, I mean, Steph Curry got his finals MVP. Wiggins played phenomenal, was definitely their second best player all series. Glad to see, Klay get it. I do think it's interesting. I think they'll keep all three of them. I think it's been interesting to see some of the conversation where Draymond or Klay might get moved or whatever, because obviously Draymond started off the series pretty slow too, although had a phenomenal last 2 games and really kind of, for especially Draymond standards, brought the hustle, brought the energy, and was kind of doing stuff all over. He was even hitting a couple threes, so spacing the floor a little bit, and I don't think he finished with a triple single today. Actually, he might have finished with a double-double in the closeout game, but regardless, I don't think that trio will ever get split up. They've done so much for that franchise. They've done as much for that franchise as anybody has ever done for a single franchise in history, other than maybe Bill Russell or Michael Jordan, right? So they're right up there as the top. I mean, they've won more rings for that franchise than Magic Johnson did for the Lakers or than Larry Bird did for the Boston Celtics. So when you put it in that perspective, I don't think they'll ever split up the trio other than retirement. And I do think that Klay is severely overpaid. I think Draymond is at least a little bit overpaid, although not as bad, just because also he has so much more of a leadership role. I feel that's visible from my perspective. Now, Klay, not to say Klay isn't a leader, but I mean, even with Gary Payton, he was making some mistakes today, and when the Celtics were trying to kind of come back there towards the end of the game, and he had a couple fouls, and you saw Iguodala get super frustrated with him and show that visible frustration on the sideline. You saw Draymond Green and Iggy talking about it before they pulled Gary Payton out, and then you saw both of them get on Gary Payton Jr.'s play on the court and hey, you can't be fouled and all that. The passion and the leadership is very visible by that. Now, not to say Klay isn't, I'm sure he is, especially being a veteran. And I mean, you just look at his personality, he feels like a guy that would do what he can. I mean, he does what he can to help the team win. Seems like he'd do what he can to help guys get better, right? So it's not to say he isn't, but the level, I think there's levels to this shit, right? To put it simply. But yeah, I mean, super interesting to see the Warriors get their 4th ring. I find myself conflicted on the Boston Celtics. So there's a lot to unpack for the Boston Celtics. I did want to make sure I got all my Warriors credit given out at the start of the video. Now, my predictions for next year will come a little later once we're getting close to next year, obviously. So we'll see how I'm feeling then, especially after the offseason, the draft, and everything like that. Speaking of the draft, I am going to have a video coming out this week. I am going to record a few of these in bulk and kind of schedule them for you guys so that we have some content, because I know I had said I was going to upload a video the other day, but I did get busy because I am going on a trip for the next week, so I kind of got busy with all of that. But yeah, so I've got a little bit of time before I leave. I'm going to record some videos, get those set for you guys to see while I'm gone, so you guys can just get a little more information. So make sure you guys stay tuned to check those out. But the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum had his ups and downs, right? Game 1, struggled to score, but was a brilliant playmaker. Then we saw him a little bit more into the series have a big scoring time, but still maybe wasn't taking your favorite shots, but he was making the shots, right? So it didn't really matter. And then we saw today him kind of just stink it up. He didn't really show up in the way he needed to. I think The blitz that the Warriors came out of the locker room with, of we are just going to win tonight, right? I think that mentality was super crucial in deflating the young Celtics team spirits, right? I think when you go up by a historical margin by halftime, there is always we got a whole another half of basketball, but it's such a morale jackhammer to the other team. And I'm sure just obliterated their spirits, obliterated their confidence, because yeah, you've got some guys over there. I mean, you've got Jaylen Brown, you've got Jason Tatum, even Marcus Smart. He's one of the cockiest guys in the NBA. You got to be that to win Defensive Player of the Year. Be that, get in your face, gritty type of guy, similar to like a Draymond, right? Draymond's won Defensive Player of the Year. And Al Horford, a guy that he has never made it until now, so he knows about that. You might not get another opportunity, and we saw in the second half him really get fired up and try and do everything he could, but the team as a whole just wasn't able to rally kind of behind him in that sense, which was unfortunate, I guess, for Celtics fans and for the Boston Celtics themselves. Now, we'll see if Jason Tatum can make it back. I almost had some very bold predictions, or not even predictions, dare say, but more of statements come out about him. We'll see how I kind of let those sink in throughout the offseason, and I'll see if I do end up making potentially a very controversial video about him, which I was thinking about making before Game 5. So we'll see how that goes, but I do want to give those thoughts a little more time to kind of simmer and really see if that's actually truly what I'm thinking. But yeah, I mean, there's so many young players in this league, and we saw the path that the Celtics had to go through in the Eastern Conference. That Jason Tatum, he's got to show up on those big moments. And at least in this finals, this wasn't him. Now, he can absolutely take this as a learning moment. He can take this as a get in the gym moment and just come back even better, right? When I look at this season overall, one of my favorite memories from this season, which a season that feels like almost two, kind of split in half by that COVID stuff that we had in the middle or whatever, right? But it almost feels like two seasons in that sense. But one of my favorite moments from the season was at the start of the season, Milwaukee versus the Boston Celtics, something we didn't know was going to end up being such a big series later on in the year at the time. So looking back, that's even crazier to think of. But there was this one play where Jason Tatum, I believe he was on the left wing, guarded by Giannis, and Giannis played phenomenal defense, but Tatum was just able to fade back and hit the shot, and it was like, offense is just better than defense. And I think that moment has stuck in my head throughout the entirety of this season, which is super interesting because that's really how the finals came down, right? You had the best defense, or one of the best defenses, especially at limiting star players' production, in the Boston Celtics come out of the Eastern Conference, and then you saw an electric offense with, 4 all-star caliber players on any given night, with a plethora of young guys in the Golden State Warriors, right? And you saw the vets in the Warriors surrounding themselves by young guys versus the young guys on the Celtics surrounding themselves by vets. The complete polarity of these two teams was super interesting, and I think really brought me back to that memory a lot, because it was a memory of Jason Tatum hitting that shot and everything like that, and also him being in the finals and all that. So there's that direct correlation to it, but the polarity of the situation and of the teams and of everything like that really brought me back to that thought when I watched that happen and just said, great offense will always beat great defense. And to a point, I think that's exactly what happened. And I mean, I think experience mattered a lot. I think the fact that, the veterans on the Boston Celtics were guys that hadn't been there before, right? Marcus Smart hasn't been there before. He's like 28, 29, maybe 27, something like that. I don't know. He's not old, but he's a veteran on this team, right? He's been there since before they got their, all-star caliber players, and he's still there now with them. Who knows if he'll be there after them, right? But he is a veteran on that team, very much so. Al Horford, definitely the obvious veteran on that team, but a guy that, like I said, has never been there. He's been an all-star, been into the playoffs and everything like that, but never been at that highest level of basketball on planet Earth. And So I think when you look at that, I mean, even a guy like Derek White, who came in partway through the season, he's like 26 or something like that, 25. A little bit of an older, youngish guy, you know what I mean, a established player in the league, hadn't ever gotten to that point, right? When he joined the Spurs, that was after they were constantly at the highest level of basketball, right? So I think that lack of experience did come back to bite the Celtics, and we saw them get off to that early start within the series that helped them kind of propel themselves to take it to 6, but the adversity that they had never had to face at this level and with all the lights on them, I mean, I know these are cliches to say, like, all the pressure in the world, they didn't hit the shot that mattered or something like that, you know what I mean? But that is truthfully what kind of happened, and I think you do have to kind of use some of those cliches because they hadn't had the experience and whatever. And so, I mean, you can be the coolest guy, you can be the most level-headed guy, you can be the moment doesn't bother me guy, but somewhere deep inside, it is a little different if you've been there, right? And I think that helped the Warriors a lot throughout the series, especially with how much criticism, I mean, this team was getting throughout the series. Pretty much everybody wanted the Celtics to win. I think it was, I'd probably say a 60-40 split that thought the Warriors would win, and probably like an 80-20 split that wanted the Celtics to win, right? I was pretty close in the middle. I think I did say I wanted the Celtics to win, but I also wasn't mad because I knew if the Warriors won, Steph Curry would get Finals MVP, and obviously being one of my favorite players, I can't be mad at that, right? At the end of the day, I wanted good basketball, and for the most part, that's what we got. For the most part. There were moments, right? No, but I think the Celtics have a chance to get back. Now they have some of this experience. The East is getting older and younger at the same time. I think we'll see what Philly's able to do next year with more of a revamped roster around Embiid and Harden. We will see if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to be able to stay healthy and get past this team. Maybe get some better pieces that are going to help them get past this team in the playoffs. We'll see if the Miami Heat don't just potentially trade for a superstar and there you go. You just took them to 7. Well, they just got even better, right? Or even the Atlanta Hawks making big-time moves. I mean, there's so many rumors flying out through these teams that are younger or older in the Eastern Conference that it's not going to be an easy route next year for the Celtics. But that isn't to say, like, they don't have one of the best players on planet Earth in Jason Tatum. And probably, I'm not going to say the best, but a top 3 Robin in the league. I mean, if you're talking Batman and Robin duos, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are easily one of the top guys because you've got a perennial, at least top 10 guy in Jason Tatum. You've got at least a probably top 25, 30 guy, which is crazy to think for saying like an all-star and everything like that, in Jaylen Brown, but both phenomenal players, right? And both two-way players and everything like that. They can create their own shot and primarily drive that offense next to each other. I mean, he's clearly one of the best at what he does. Now, he struggled in the series as well. Not quite as much as Jason Tatum, so I won't talk on him as much, but do note it that it wasn't just Tatum that struggled in this series. And the final thing I kind of really want to touch on in this video is Al Horford. Or player, I guess, not thing. But his play was a thing. It was a thing to watch, that's for sure. I mean, you start off the series having a career, it felt like a career night for a former All-Star player, right? In the NBA Finals, just putting your team on your back in the fourth quarter to help you win one, and then you do nothing the next game, and you come back and you do a little bit, and then you do nothing, and like, it was so confusing watching Al Horford throughout the series, but I think it was just age, it was not having that foot speed mobility that he maybe used to have, and it was also, the miles this guy's been he's been in the league for, what, 14, 16 years, something like that. So the miles on him playing basketball, especially at a center position, which is a lot more injury prone and everything like that, compared to a guard position like Stephen Curry or something, where Steph Curry's played like 13 years in the league, I think. But it doesn't feel quite as he's played 13 years in the league because he doesn't have all that physical strain on him that Al Horford has, right? So I think some of that did kind of catch up to him. But in the final game, all he did was lay it all out and try his best to help will his team. I think he showed how much he cared and really wanted it. the run that he was able to go on in the second half after being pretty much non-existent for the first half was special for their team and almost got them back into the game in a game that for a little while there felt completely lopsided, completely out of hand, and completely unreachable by them. So I would like to give Al Horford props for where he's at in his career, having gotten there, and at least gotten to glimpse what it would be like to win an NBA Finals, right? I think he showed how much he really wants one. If he ever gets one, we'll see. Obviously, he's got a massive contract, so it would probably have to be with the Boston Celtics, but that isn't an impossible to do. I mean, the Warriors are the perfect example. They made it 6 straight years, I think, and won it 4 straight. Or not 4 straight. They won it 3 out of 4. Regardless, you get what I'm saying. Like, you can get back. It's just going to take the proper GM continuing to do their thing. Ime Udoka being the guy still to get the most out of this team. The chemistry that they were able to build in the second half of the year, continuing on with new guys added into the fray, and then the continued evolution of their superstars on their roster. So I'm not counting Boston out for the future, but I'm not counting them in. It is obviously a wait-and-see game of basketball, right? That's why you play the game, to figure out the outcome, and so we'll see how that kind of works out. But yeah, I did want to make sure I touched on Al Horford, and I thought that he would play more mid, kind of between where he played in Game 1 and Game 2, and kind of find a medium ground there. But it was very sporadic, and I do think that was something that led to them not doing as well, because you didn't know what you were going to get out of one of your starters, which is tough. It's a tough position to be in once you're in the NBA Finals, right? But yeah, regardless, that has been it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of the finals. Honestly, I thought it was super entertaining. I mean, it's basketball at the highest level. How could you not even just enjoy some of it? Just enjoy the fact that it happened, right? But yeah, that's going to be it from me. It's been your boy Dom, and I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, guys.